Hey everybody, this is Perch. Here's a mail from somebody who watched Disney's Encanto and believes this is the future for the comic book industry. Okay, I'm skeptical. I watched that film with my kids. It's interesting because my children are they're a curious litmus test for what is going to actually work. They've hit the age now where their gut reaction tells me a lot about the kind of various things that are coming out. Generally speaking, if I'm showing my kids any kind of cartoon, any movie, anything, there's a scale. So if there is well, almost 80% of the time, maybe 90% of the time, the immediate reaction to anything I show my kids is happiness. They're like, "Yeah, we love it. Yes, it was great. Oh, so I had a great time with this movie." They're mainly just happy that they got to see a movie, or they're happy they're not doing homework. So there's this immediate positive reaction. The real test is to find out a day or two later if they want to watch the movie again. That happens 20% of the time. Sometimes a couple days later, I'll come back and say, "Hey, do you guys want to see like Encanto again?" They're like, "No, no, that's okay. No." That's a sign that while they were entertained at the moment by this movie and just this idea that they got to see something, it wasn't entertaining enough. They got to see it, a second or third time. They had no interest in it. About 10% of the time, 10 to 15% of the time, my kids will just, get bored and start wanting to do something else, trying to find an iPad to play while the movie's going on, or just walk away. That's what happened with Turning Red. And since, I've got two kids, two girls, and the older one was about 15, 20 minutes into Turning Red was out. She was out. And keep in mind, she is a sucker for anything that's like a big, kind of fluffy, cute animal. She is all over that stuff. And despite the fact that you had a big, cute, fluffy panda, she couldn't do it. My younger daughter hung with it for the movie, but was like doing gymnastics over the couch and just like it clearly didn't hold her attention. Neither one of them ever wanted to go back to it. Encanto, they both sat there and they watched it. But aside of one nightmarish thing about that movie, they had no interest in revisiting it. The one nightmarish thing about it is it's a musical, and there's this song, "We Don't Talk About Bruno," and Christ, I don't know what kind of heroin or crack is in that song, but that both of my daughters are like, "Yeah, we love that song. Play it in the car, play it." It just immediately they start playing out Alexa. They had no interest in the rest of the film, seeing it again or dealing with it ever again, but they were all over that. Anyway, this mail that this person writes, I think reveals, I don't agree with how they got there, but I agree with the destination. It goes, "Hey, Perch, I recently watched Encanto, and that is an amazingly great superhero movie. You might consider it to be I think they mean you might not, yeah, that's what I mean. You might not consider it to be a superhero movie, but it was. The characters had powers, there was a superhero origin story, and they had to defend their house, and it was all about superheroes. So I got to thinking, why can't Marvel or Disney use that same approach for their comics? If they want to take Spider-Man and have a superhero comic, they should do that. And then they could have a completely separate comic that is the slice of life part of Spider-Man. And then they could have another comic that is maybe the horror aspect of Spider-Man. Why can't they take one property and do different genres using the same character to meet all the different audiences? I think that would do a great idea. What do you think of this idea? Let me know. Okay, so like I said, I think this is the right answer in a lot of ways, and I think this is the logical place for Marvel and DC to go given where they currently are. And that's what we're about to talk about. I don't get how you got there from Encanto, but leaving that aside, that's fine. We've talked enough about Bruno. So this, I think, is the answer. I don't think this is the answer for comics in general. I don't think this is the answer for indie books or anything else. But I think it's definitely the answer for Marvel and DC. I think if you put me in charge of one of those two companies, what I would do kind of immediately is I would take a look at my properties and I would say, all right, we've got hundreds and hundreds of characters, and we're trying all these new things, but none of them are sticking, and we're canceling titles after 4 and everything else. I want to identify 4 genres that we're going to play in. I want classic superhero, hardcore superhero action, fits with what we're doing with the movies. Just all about that kind of adventure. Classic, almost 80s superhero style storytelling. I want to go after horror and more adult content, stuff that's either a little bit more alternative or a little bit more horror, kind of what Vertigo used to be, or kind of more of the horror comics, and that's the genre we're going after. And then I'm going to take a crack at this lifestyle slice of life type webtoon content, and I'm going to make that a genre. And then my fourth bucket is going to be experimental. This is where I think we want to do some, the sidekicks of Spider-Man, or that's where you put some LGBTQ content or whatever happens to be. That's where you have kind of some different genres that are not big enough in the U.S. market to do anything with, but we want to experiment, we want to try, and we want to see if we can get some attention there. And then I'd say, what are my core characters? All right, I got Batman, I got in DC, Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman. Fortunately, you look at the classic Justice League characters, it's like, there you go. Those are your characters. And I would say, all right, I want a Superman book out once a month, a monthly Superman title, ongoing, that is classic superhero action. And in that book, I want it really geared toward adventures, fighting villains, all the kind of just classic Superman story. And then my second book would be Superman, but in this kind of horror genre, and it doesn't fit for everybody, by the way. But I mean, here's where we want to do something a little bit more adult, a little bit more edgy. Here's the third book where we're going to do something where it's that's where we want to pick up some of Lois Lane and Jimmy and kind of the slice of life surrounding Superman. And maybe that one's going to be a digital only title because that's where the slice of life audience is. It's not in the comic book shop. But basically, the key here is I'm not mixing them together. I'm not taking the monthly superhero Superman book and saying, hey, I want to somehow magically attract the slice of life audience in. So I'm going to have like 6 pages in the book, be about that. And then 6 pages be about Superman fighting a villain. And then another 6 pages doing some other crazy shit. Like I would just completely separate out these stories, and I would just clean up my line that way. I would say, I would basically go on, okay, Batman, can we do a dark, gritty, edgy, pseudo horror adult style Batman? The answer is yes. The movie is out. It's going to be more gritty. I mean, that's going to be the darker Batman. Okay, monthly title. One classic Batman fighting super villains and doing his thing. One where it's like, Pals of Gotham, I don't know, whatever the hell you want to call it. Again, but I would also hire people who really were experts in those genres to be the editor-in-chiefs of each line. So rather than have one editor-in-chief over everything, I'd have an editor who really gets superhero books. I'd just commit to doing that and keeping, staying in your lane. And I think that why I would do it that way is that I would try and go back to basics a little bit and build up my core line, build up my core characters. I want to make sure at the end of the day that Spider-Man, Captain America, Fantastic Four, Thor, the Hulk, the core Wolverine, the core characters I'm trying to push are playing strong in the categories they're in. They don't all fit. A slice of life Wolverine story, that sounds terrible, but a dark, grittier, edgier horror Wolverine story and a superhero story that's more accessible to younger ages, absolutely. Do those 2 titles, go. That's how I would try and aid. The problem I see now is they're not picking a single genre. They're just kind of blending them all together and mixing it until you got mud, and there is no real strategy. And then they just introduce random characters into the mix, but they have no hope of actually getting over. Meanwhile, some of their classic IP is withering on the vine. And so that's how I just streamline things. I would do that for a couple years. I would just try and make it, get it really focused. And what I would try and do is to go out to my comic buying audience and say, look, I want to get you one of 2 ways. Either you're a huge Batman fan, and so you're going to buy Batman in whatever category I put it out in. You're going to buy the horror book, the adult book. You're going to buy the general superhero book because you love Batman. You want everything to do with that character. Or I'm going to say, you like superheroes? Great. Then I've got a Batman book, a Wonder Woman book, a Superman book, a Justice League book, an Aquaman book. I've got those for you. You can just buy this line. Oh, are you older and you want something a little bit more horror, a little bit more edgy? Here you go. Here's that lineup. You can just go in and buy that. Are you interested? You don't like superhero books and you want slice of life, but you still, and I'm not completely convinced this is true, but you still want to more or less see characters that you're curious about kind of the web hijinks of some of these guys. Great. Again, maybe that's my webtoon play. Maybe it's my digital play. It's a slice of life kind of material. Okay, do we want to have some content appealing to LGBTQ audience? Cool. I'm going to make it a genre, make it a category, and I'm going to commit and put some books in there, like the person who wrote me the mail a couple days ago. And I'm going to give you something that fits that genre, that is all in. Not trying to kind of sandwich it in amongst other things. I'm just going to put it all together. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, this sounds like you're just segregating everything. No, not at all. I'm trying to go really aggressively focused at the audience that wants this book. I want somebody who's picking up the adult horror type title and be able to say, yep, that's what I wanted, that's what I picked up, that's what I paid for, and that's what I've got. Also, separating it out that way gives me the opportunity to play with print, play with the direct market, play with digital. I put content where it belongs. I put content where the audience was. And also, I would try and price it where the audience was. I would look at superhero and say, wait a minute, My Hero Academia is over here selling Tonkabon copies for $6.99 at Target that give people like 150 pages of a superhero book. Okay, my $5.99 book, just tiny bit cheaper in some cases, is 22 pages. So this doesn't work. Now, granted, that's black and white. I've got color, but still, this doesn't work. So I'm going to start putting out, if I want to really capture the superhero market and capture some of these new readers coming in, then I'm going to have to figure out a way to drop my price. And then if I'm appealing to the kind of older, horror kind of market, I may go, look, these are collectors who are used to paying $4.99, $5.99, and that's the price they will pay. I don't know if it's true, but I'm just saying as a because that's how I would start to adjust the pricing, adjust the lines, and I'd be able to target very closely what I'm doing. So, to your mail, to the question that was asked, if I now try and bring it back to Encanto, again, I don't quite get where you're going with that, but if I do look at Encanto, I will say, yes, there were superhero elements to that. Yes, it was also a slice of life family kind of story. It was kind of both things. So if you were Disney, could you put out a Encanto, television series that is about these superhero characters going off and having superhero adventures? Yeah, you probably could. That might work, actually. Go ahead and, you have this, that there's some interesting superheroes. What, you got one that controls the weather and one that's super strong, and the one that makes flowers kind of sucks in battle, but, the other is one that can hear really well. I mean, you can introduce one kid, like there's a kid that controls animals or talks to them. So, I mean, you can have a superhero team with that. You can have superhero adventures. And sure, why not put a show out or a comic book out that's just all about their superhero adventures? Great. And you could put out a second comic book that's all about, when they're messing around at the house with, with grandma. I mean, abuela. Sure, you could do that. I'm not saying you can never mix these things together. Of course you can, but right now it feels like it's what's the old expression? It's a mile wide and an inch deep. It's spread very, very thin, and you're not getting any of the opportunity of having these genres sit on their own. So I don't know. That's what I did. Now I'm sure there's a bunch of people in the comments will say, "Well, that sounds terrible. Perch is a effing idiot." That's fine. I'm not in charge of any of these companies, so it's all hypothetical anyway. So you don't have to worry about it. Nor am I going to be getting a job in one of those companies anytime soon. That's not going to be happening. But there you have it. So that's what I would do. I think there's some wisdom to just drilling in, focusing, and nailing what you can do. And stop working so hard. Stop trying to insert a little bit of slice of life and a little bit of romance and a little bit of kind of BL and a little bit of superhero all into the pages of Spider-Man. I think you're wasting your time, and nobody's going to go for that. Anyway, let me know what you think. What's the angle here? This is not a genius idea on my part. So, what's the better one? You got it, I'm sure. So let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, of course, and thanks for listening.